Good afternoon or good morning, wherever in the world you are. My name is Andrew Stiverts, and I'm going to be your, I was about to say instructor, because that's what I usually am. I'm going to be your guide today, going through some of the updates in 3.0 in Cisco's ISE, the Identity Services Engine. And so we've got a couple little interesting updates, some basic functionality. And then I'm going to show you a little hands-on demo of what it actually looks like. If anybody here has worked with ISE before, we've got some graphical updates that makes life a little easier, especially when we have to use that tool a good amount. So first, our quick little agenda. First little update, we've got pxGrid is becoming, or it's integrating pxCloud. And so we'll take a little look at, what is pxGrid? What's it really doing there, and how is it changing? Another big update we've got is our agentless posture assessments, or another name this sometimes goes by is compliance. All right, and we'll take a look at device auditing and device posture assessment. And why do you care? This is actually, just full disclosure, I'm most excited about that one little feature. The fact that it's agentless and we get more support there, I think is really going to change how a lot of admins approach that option. As with all recent changes in the world of Cisco, we have this ongoing analytics trend, or AI, the artificial intelligence. All right, so we'll take a quick look. They've got a little more AI, a little more machine learning that's going to get used, which again could be helpful, especially as we start looking at IoT. I will very, very quickly talk about licensing. We all said, okay, fine, we have to talk about licensing, all the fun stuff we want to do. There has to be licensing to unlock that. And then I'll show you some of the updated GUI and what's going on there. All right, so pxGrid. First off, what's the big idea? Well, pxGrid, excuse me, is an API that's used for, this is kind of the critical important point, it's used for sharing context. Now this is the point where in class I would say, does anybody remember what context is? Because we'll be talking about it when we're going through the SISE training. Context is everything about that client connection. Right? It's what time of day is it, what type of device is it, who's the user, how did they authenticate, what identity groups they're part of. It's everything that ISE knows about that connection. And so what pxGrid gives us is an API where we can subscribe or publish context info, but it's not just from ISE. ISE can use pxGrid to pull in. It can subscribe to context info from other services. So, well, what other services? Location is a big one. You look at mobile devices, you look location information, where in the building, well, which path did they take, and tying that into our intelligence. Also the cloud, that's kind of what we're going to get into a little bit here. For now, it's just pxGrid. We've got CASB, or Cloud Access Security Broker. We've got some cloud integration, but not a lot. Right? So at its base level, pxGrid was primarily, in this case, for just sharing context. That was really its big goal. Right? They kind of go a little more into this, or I go a little more into this. This is the official Cisco definition. It's an API for sharing context, policy, and configuration, but pretty much with everybody. It's an open API, so it's really just for sharing all the intelligence, all the raw data our tools have. That way you're not limited to just what one device actually is aware of. And so pxGrid, you have subscribers and publishers. And so a pxGrid publisher is any device that has information about a given client and its context, and a pxGrid subscriber is any device that is retrieving that info. And so they give you an example here of like location and identity, where I could have a location service pulling in from Wi-Fi, my mobility management systems, and I could be publishing location info for all the MAC addresses in my environment. And then when we're getting into identity, we're getting into authentication, we would be subscribing to that to identify which authentication, which authorization a device gets based on its location. So we're just sharing context, sharing what do we know about that device. All right, so that's good so far. So now, how is it going to change? What's the new feature with 3.0? Well, we're calling it pxCloud. So we, Cisco, I don't work directly for Cisco, but we work with them a lot. Calling it pxCloud. Now, the first thing I want to mention here, don't confuse this. They already have pxCloud in another part of the Cisco realm, so a little overlapping terminology. If you see something where it says pxCloud and PX is capitalized, that is the Partner Experience Cloud. That is not what we're talking about here. All right, that is an entirely different tool. It's not an API for sharing context. What pxCloud gives us, it's still an API, but now we're not just reaching into the cloud to say yes or no, does that MAC address exist, or is it in the cloud? Now we're looking at what context do our cloud security options, what are they aware of? So think about your cloud here for a second. Let's say we went out to, just easy example, let's say we went out to AWS and we had our little VPC. And so if we were looking at potentially, we had we'll say a public subnet where we put some addressing, we put some servers. We had a private subnet where we put some addressing, we put a couple servers in there. What kind of context would I want to share out of that into my on-premises servers? Well, for example, if I had a couple of host machines and I put them in a public subnet because I'm going to create a gateway over here and it's going to go out to my happy little internet. And so I'm creating a couple VMs that my hosts, my contractors are going to use. Well, I want to know what the security context is of those VMs in that subnet. I want to know when were they spun up, what privileges do they have, what groups are they a part of. In the terminology of AWS, this is where we get into IAM, your identity and access management. Who has access? What level of access do they have? That context is not just tied into AWS anymore. I can take that info, share it out to ISE, so when I've got something out there in the cloud talking to an on-prem device, my firewall rules, my authentication, whatever I'm using context to decide yes or no, do I let that through, I can now leverage what I know in the cloud, not just, yeah, it's in the cloud, okay. All right, I can get more in depth there. We got support for AWS, we got support for Azure. And my last kind of clarification here, it's not single sign-on. I've had a couple students come through training and they hear about this and they say, oh, okay, so if somebody logs in the cloud, then I can share that context that they exist down to ISE and then give them access to a local resource. Not the same. All right, we do support single sign-on. Right? But that's a separate tool, it's a separate action where we're respecting the authentication that some of those services provided. Like when you look at, let's go to Microsoft, Azure, or Azure, however you want to say that. Azure has their Azure Active Directory. ISE can use that to do single sign-on from the cloud. That's not this. This is just context. This is just information about that device, about that host, and using that to match, to feed into our policies back on ISE. All right, but it's not the same as single sign-on. It does look like it overlaps a little bit. Okay, so that's one of our first options. That's one of our first benefits, is that ISE is going to have deeper integration, more intelligence sharing with your cloud, which is pretty great because I'd say raise your hands, but most of you have your camera off. Most of us have cloud resources these days, and we want to have complete control and complete visibility over that, and then complete policy control using ISE. Okay. Now, next little update. I say little, this one's huge. Posture assessment, or compliance it's sometimes called. What we're looking at here, sorry, first off, what is posture? Let's define it, and we'll talk about how it's changing. Posture assessments are where when a client's logging in, when we're approving a connection, we are first verifying its status. And when we say status, what do we mean? Well, I got a little sample list here. We can look at almost any aspect of the client when it's coming in. So not just is it the latest OS version, which operating system and which version of the operating system is it running? If there's a particular piece of software, particular application or program, they used to call it, is there a particular version or a security patch? Has that been installed? But we can go much more in depth. Like, is there a firewall? Yeah, is there a firewall on that host? Is the firewall turned on? Are automatic updates enabled? We're not, you see where we're going with this. We're verifying the current status of that device before we're going to give it access to the network. Because what if there's a compromised host and its firewall got turned off? Or what if there's a 0-day vulnerability, or maybe a 1-day vulnerability? Everybody remember that log4j we just had? Some of us are still dealing with. So the log4j vulnerability goes out. Say, okay, well, any hosts coming in, I want to determine if they're susceptible to that attack. And so we're scanning the hosts before we actually give them access, before we authorize them. All right. Where we can go further with this, and actually I'll talk about this a little bit in a second, is also we can integrate with your MDM, mobile device management, where cell phones, laptops, if they get lost or stolen, we want to report them as lost and stolen, we want to prevent them from accessing the network, we can absolutely integrate that with this. You don't have to. At a base level, we're looking at connecting to the Wi-Fi, connecting to the wired. How is that device set up? What is its current status before we give it a connection? Okay, so what goes into this is actually a pretty cool, very powerful tools. There's what we are verifying, the current status of that device, patches, application, firewall status, and so on. There's the method of connectivity, wired or wireless. And whenever a device connects, it starts, it starts with an unknown status. We haven't assessed it yet. We haven't scanned it. We don't know if its current status is in line or aligned with our policy. And so then we scan it, and if what we're looking for, that device's conditions match, then we would say it is a compliant device, and we send a COA. Anyone remember what COA stands for? I know I say that with, not everybody has their mics here. I usually teach the Identity Service Engine training. When I get to slides like this, I like to go back to what we talked about on Monday. But COA, change of authorization, where we're sending that COA, either radius or SNMP messaging, we're sending it down to the network access device, and we're updating the authorization level on that port or on that wireless LAN connection. We're changing the VLAN, we're changing the ACL, we're changing the scalable group tag, TrustSec, absolutely. So we don't have to drop the connection most of the time. There's always an exception, but you are updating the initial authorization to whatever level it should have. Or if a device connects in, we scan it and it doesn't have what we're looking for, we would say it's non-compliant. Let's say the firewall is not turned on. Easy example, right? The firewall is not turned on, and I don't want a host that has no firewall connected to my network. That'd be a problem. So what we can do is not just give it no access, because we want to let the user fix their connection. So we put them in a remediation level of access, which actually might be the same as our limited access. Where the remediation, we give them access to a local server to download an update. They can run a script to fix the problems, but we give them something so that they can become compliant, right? Then we'll send a COA and open up their connection. All right. So that's what posture is doing. Good so far? We're assessing the current status of that client before it comes in. Now, how could this go wrong? Well, the reason a number of administrators have looked at this tool and said, no, I'm okay. That's a lot of work. I don't want to get into that. Is because it's primarily, it has been agent-based. with agents. Agents are the scanning tools that we're using, the agent is deployed to the client to scan and then report its results back to ISE. Here's the problem. Ready for this? You have different agents for different operating systems. So if you have both Windows and, what was that other one? Apple. Windows and Apple, and maybe some Linux operating systems in your environment, you'd have to have different agents set up for those different operating systems. There are some agents that can blend, but even the ones that can blend across operating systems, it's even better. Different agents have different functions. What do I mean by that? Different agents are better or have the ability to scan for different parts of the operating system, different options. Like, for example, the registry. When we look at Microsoft Windows, the registry, very powerful. It determines the various settings of the operating system and how it works, boot time options, memory options. So making sure the registry is exactly how we would expect. The options in the registry match our policy. Absolutely, that's something we could scan for in posture. The problem is that agents that can scan for registry functions, registry policy, might not have the ability to scan for firewall functionality. And so to use this tool, classically, to use this tool, you had to choose the agent for your operating systems for the functions that you were matching in your policy. You see how that could get a little messy? If you had a large number of operating systems and a large, you're kind of a complex policy you wanted to look at. So that's not great. So what are we moving toward? Agentless. Now with agentless posture assessments, what we're going to do is, oh, sorry, I forgot to mention the other reason it was terrible. My second bullet point here. Your employees, your clients had to click things. When they were connecting to the network, we'd redirect them to splash pages. They'd have to click a button to deploy the agent. They got involved in the onboarding process. Anyone here ever have a problem having your non-technical employees go through an onboarding or a scanning process? No, just me, right? Nobody ever has a problem with non-technical folks doing technical things. Sure. Okay, so that's the problem. What's the fix? The fix is agentless scanning. With agentless scanning, you still have an agent per operating system, right? So we're still going to have one for OS X and one for Windows. But that's pretty much it. What we're going to do is we're going to do an agentless deployment where when a client initially connects, the limited access will allow the scripts to run. We'll run it through PowerShell and Windows, for example, where we're going to search or use that script to look at any part of that device we care about. We're not limited to any one function. That script can go anywhere. And then based on what that agentless scan, I should say, what that agentless script reports back, that will determine if the device is compliant or not. And so, one, this removes the humans from the factor. The humans don't have to click as much. We're just, as long as our ports are open, we can run the scans and we'll take care of it ourselves. And then it's all done through scripts. So you don't have to worry about matching the particular agent to the function, the piece of the policy that you care about. You just update the script for scanning the registry, scanning for the firewall, and Cisco on their databases, they've got some sample scripts where we can just copy and paste a lot of that in to make life easy for us. I'll show you some of that in the graphical demo as well. All right, and one of our last little updates here. There's a couple more, but this is one of the big ones that I wanted to mention. AI Endpoint Analytics. Artificial Intelligence Endpoint Analytics. All right. So here's my question. You can type the answer in the meeting chat. I'll see it on the screen here, and when I sit down. This is kind of a joke, kind of a question. What's the difference between machine learning and artificial intelligence? If any of you have attended my training, we talk about machine learning a lot in classes these days, whether it's CCNA, SISE, NRC, the Advanced Routing and Services. We talk about machine learning and artificial intelligence more and more, right? Because it keeps popping up in different topics. What I like to say in class, kind of a joke, the difference between machine learning and artificial intelligence. Machine learning is usually written in Python. Artificial intelligence is usually written in PowerPoint because it's more of a marketing term, right? Artificial intelligence. It just sounds so futuristic, right? All right, what's the real difference? There actually is a difference. Both machine learning and artificial intelligence are algorithm, are pattern driven. But the difference is the output. With machine learning, we're looking at patterns, we're looking at a number of samples to either be able to just recognize that exact same pattern in the future, or to be able to generate more content, generate more of the same pattern. Whereas artificial intelligence is a slightly different result. Artificial intelligence, we're using an algorithm, we're looking at a large number of samples, feeding it a pattern, and an artificial intelligence algorithm will be able to make a decision, be able to achieve a result as if it was a human based on that pattern. Right? It's able to come to a conclusion about what that pattern indicates. Why is that so important? Why is that so critical? That's my what is it question there. What are those endpoints in your environment? When a device connects in, what do we see? MAC addressing, sure, IP addressing, and classically, we've had the OUI. Look at the MAC address, first 24 bits, and that tells us Apple iPad, Google Galaxy phone, easy examples. But more than that, excuse me, especially today, when we start looking at the world of IoT, Internet of Things, or as I call it, the Internet of Stuff, right? It's just stuff that was not on our network and now it's connected to our network. Okay, but if we don't have a good OUI identifier, if this is a newer device and we don't manually classify it ourselves, what ISE can do for us now, and we'll run our feed updates, we'll get our updates, we're looking at not just what have we seen in our network, but we're looking at what has Cisco seen in other networks, other patterns of device behavior, and then how was that device eventually classified? So that if we see just a pattern of behavior, we can have ISE automatically classify that device into an identity group, have a policy applied based on that, without us having to do anything. It's an action driven by the pattern recognition. That's why we call this one's AI, not quite machine learning. This also integrates with, I'm not going to go too far down this rabbit hole, but when it comes to the world of IoT, it's a lot of wireless, a lot of IPv6, a lot of the new Wi-Fi 6 standards. And so MDM, EMM, your mobile device management, enterprise mobility management, it's more of an IBM term there. When we've got all these new wireless devices out there that not every ISE engine, not everyone gets all the updates, but we still need to classify accurately what that is. This will help us do that. This will also come into play for anyone in an industrial environment. We're looking at MUD, the manufacturer usage description. MUD, it's similar to MAC addressing, where it's going to be a label from the manufacturer, from the vendor on the device, where it's not used for layer 2 switching, it's just a label, just to identify what device type it is. So we can have MUD be retrieved by ISE, by our device profiling, to classify what the device actually is. But then we can also have our AI-driven algorithms looking at what is that device actually doing in order to classify it. Why is that so important? Why am I separating the two of there? Think about it from a security perspective. Think like a hacker. If you wanted to slip through a firewall, gain unauthorized access, what would you do? You would set a MUD, set a manufacturer usage description tag saying that your laptop was really just a smart light bulb. And it should be just given smart light bulb, it should be given access, right? So we don't trust that. It's helpful, but we're also going to watch what is that device really doing before we give it access. All right. Now for licensing for these three main benefits, there's always that's the other thing that always comes up in training, right? What's the licensing for me to do this really interesting stuff? All right. First off, we're looking at ISE 3.1. I know I said ISE 3.0 on the title slide, a little update there. ISE 3.0 already has its first update out, so we have ISE 3.1, and there is a slight difference between the 3.0 and the 3.1 licensing. For those of you still running 2.6 and 2.7 versions of code, which are still stable, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're looking at updating, I would recommend going straight to 3.1. We got a couple bug fixes, feature updates in there from base 3.0, so just go straight to 3.1. It's only smart licensing. Right, so Cisco's been doing smart licensing for a little while now. If you've dealt with their licensing at all, you might have heard about that. Basically, instead of having individual SKUs and downloading license packs and having to install them, we're just going to go through our nice graphical website and manage our organization's licensing and which devices in our organization are actually using those licensing. So starting with 3.1, it's only smart licensing. So that'll integrate well with everything else you're already doing, but it's only smart licensing. You can't do the legacy licensing. And for the 3 tiers, pxGrid or the new pxCloud functionality, that falls under Advantage. The new posture and compliance options, that falls under Premier. And the AI, the Endpoint Analytics, the MDM functionality, that falls under Advantage. I'll post this link in the meeting chat as well. But so when we say Advantage, Premier, so what does that mean? The link I'm going to post has this chart on it if you want to take a look at it later. So this is a nested doll that we're doing here. We have the Essentials, Advantage, and Premier licensing. They're aligning the ISE licenses with the DNA Center, your digital network architecture. So if you buy Advantage, you get Advantage and Essentials. If you buy Premier, you get Advantage and Essentials and Premier functionality. I don't get any commission on this. I actually don't get commission on anything. So I'm just telling you, this is the licensing levels required for this functionality. But yeah, we can see for that MDM, the EMM integration, that requires Premier. For posture, that requires Premier. But if you're just doing the endpoint analytics, that's just going to require Advantage. All right, and if you're doing pxGrid, that's just going to require Advantage. So endpoint analytics kind of bridges the gap where you've got that MDM and EMM. So if you have mobile devices, you're doing a BYOD, bring your own device environment, and you want to integrate with a third-party MDM tool and get those analytics, you're probably going straight to Premier anyway. I'm going to say that previously, before these updates, version 3.0, 2.7, because of the requirements of posture assessment, Premier licensing was cool, but it was kind of extra. Not many environments could take advantage of it. It was more work than sometimes was helpful. Because of the ease of using it now with the agentless posture, even if you're not doing threat-centric network access control, you're not doing MDM, it might be worth it for everyone just to be able to have that policy of what type of device, how it's set up, you want to let into your environment. All right. So let me sit down here for a second. Let me show you what I'm talking about. What's going on here? You stop sharing. Let me pivot over to my demo. There we go. So first off, what am I sharing out to you here? What's going on? So this is ISE, obviously this is an ISE engine. What I'm actually sharing to you is the D Cloud, letter D Cloud, where this is a free service from Cisco. When you look at Cisco Live, Cisco events where they've got hands-on labs or show and tell environments, it's usually hosted in the D Cloud, where this is a number of pre-built lab environments where they've got scenarios you can walk through, or you can just kick the tires and try things out because it's a virtual environment. That's going to come up later. That's why I mentioned that. But so this is what it looks like to start with. So first off, the updated graphical dashboard. For those of you who used ISE before, you're looking at it and say, wait a minute, this is a little different. It's a little more colorful. They changed some of the colors on it. They changed the font on a couple things. So this is our initial landing dashboard. And so just exploring through this real quick, you still have all the original dashlets. These are all still customizable, like on ISE 2.6 and 2.7. We can go over to some of these other tabs like endpoints or guests and look at the different dashlets that we've got under those tabs. You can create entirely new dashboards, and then under the different dashboards, we can add dashlets, the different widgets, just like we've done before. So if you have your particular type of info, your particular report that helps you find the information more quickly, you can do that with the new graphical interface. But where it's really different is you might be looking at this top line. You look at the top and you say, wait a minute, where's all the 200 tabs that used to be up here? Well, they got hidden over here in the top left, these little lines. So we click this. I'll get that nice little opening, very, very nice graphical flow there. Kind of a joke, but so now all of those tabs are now hidden in this menu, and so they're all still there. So context visibility. If I want to drill down and look at the users there, I can look at I can have my different dashlets of how I'm separating them out. I can run through the different users that I've connected in. Or let's go to endpoint visibility, and I can see the different endpoints that I've connected in. What's another common one? Under operations, we still have Radius, we have TACACS, the reports we've run. Radius live logs, pretty helpful, pretty popular for troubleshooting. Why can someone not log in? So same information we've looked at before. All right, you can still go in here and drag and adjust these different menus. Let me zoom out just a little bit. And so you can still see, it's still the same reports, right? Nothing's really functionally changed here. It's just, I believe, a little easier to look at. We can still click on the different authentication reports and still get all the info about what steps it took, which policies it was matching against, the events and reason codes. So if you're already used to using ISE for your troubleshooting, that process, your flow is going to be pretty darn similar. It's just a little different. Instead of having all these tabs up top, we're going to go over to these three menus, and then we'll open up the menu we're looking for. All right. Policy. Our policy sets is pretty common, right? So we've got the different overall policy sets, and then within those, the authentication, the authorization policies, our exceptions. None of that's changed. But as you can see, it's a little easier to look at. So for those of us who spend 6 hours a day staring at this tool, that's very helpful. So I mentioned, I was going to show you the agentless posture assessment, where that looks like in ISE here. So what let's go back to the main page. We'll hit our three dashes here and jump in our top left. We can just hit this big dashboard button, take us right back to our initial landing page. And one of the first things we're going to look at under administration, under system, specifically licensing, so come up. We have to make sure that we do have the licensing for everything we want to do, right? And so we're just verifying here. We've got our Premier licensing is enabled. You can ignore the consumption count and everything there because this is a special VM in the Cisco D Cloud. We just see, yes, Premier is enabled, so we're good to go. We have all the Premier functionality. So then to verify the different options, the steps that go into this, under policy, under policy elements, we're going to take a look here at results. There we go. Under client provisioning, yeah, there's 500 menus. It helps to remember exactly which one is something's under. Under client provisioning resources, here's an example of the different agents. And actually, this is a great example of what I was talking about earlier. So you've got an agentless agent up here for OS X, and we've got our agentless agent here for Windows, but then there's also our legacy Windows SP Wizard, Mac OS X SP, ICE for Chrome. We had a temporal agent, and those, there's nothing wrong with those agents. You just had the limitations of which operating system and which functions, which pieces of the policy could those agents actually stand for. So now we're looking at, we've got our OS X, we've got our Windows agentless functions. And so when we reference those, we're just going to create scripts that our policy that we're going to look for out on the client. All right. Excuse me. So then, under policy, under our client provisioning policy, we're going to verify that we're referencing that agent. And so what we can look at here, if we scroll down, we've got a couple policies in here. I got to be careful because there's two scroll menus. There's the overall page, so like I can scroll down, but then there's this subset, this internal scroll, window. And so we can see here our .1x posture windows, where we're saying if it's any identity group, but it's the Windows operating system, and we're seeing the username ends with .1x posture, the result we're pointing at, use that agentless agent. Use that that one we just looked at. Okay. So now we've got that role name .1x posture Windows. Okay, that's being referenced in one of our provisioning policies. So then, is that policy actually in use? So what we can do is go to our policy sets. I always have to make sure the policy set is actually referencing the provisioning policy, referencing the results that we've created. Under our authorization policy, we can see here we've got our agentless posture assessment, where we're saying if a device comes in, it's wired or wireless access, use the agentless posture profile, where that profile is going to be referencing that client provisioning policy. Directly above it, we've got this second rule, compliant devices, where if a device is compliant, we've scanned them and everything looks good, then we give them their permit access profile, and that'll tie into whatever level of access they should have. And then to verify this, you say, okay, that sounds good. I created that policy. I said use the agent. I create an authorization rule referencing that, looking good. Well, how do I verify? How do I make sure that that's actually taking effect on my clients? Good question. So under our big menu here, under context visibility, under our endpoints, there's this entire menu. We're at the top left here where we say compliance. And so this can tell us this current compliance status. We've got different dashlets for unknown versus compliant, which location we're doing the scanning at. And then we see our list here, the device ID, MAC address, and then the compliance status. So we can see this device here. We're not actually, that's like not a real device, but that would be a great example of an unknown where we haven't scanned it yet, so we're not sure. But all these green check marks, everything has been scanned that's connected in, and it's all compliant because we actually haven't set any conditions in this lab yet. We turned it on, we said there is a compliance policy. What are the conditions? No conditions. Okay, so as long as the device connects in and we scan it for really anything, nothing really, the device is seen as compliant. So I know, really terrible example, but it's an easy example. But so that's how we verify devices that are connected, what's their status. So if your employee connects in and says, hey, I'm connected to the network, but I'm not actually getting out to the internet. Well, let's take a look. Yeah, we can see your connection, but we can see a little red X and say, your device is connected, but it's not compliant. So that tells us it's not a Wi-Fi issue, it's not a multi-factor authentication issue, it's not a host of all the other things that can go wrong. It's a compliance problem, which is why they're not able to connect. So that's our new dashboard. Again, same functionality, everything's right where you left it, just a little easier to look at, and it's those 3 dashes in the top left, which we'll use to access those other menus. Now, next is a sunset learning offering. You don't always hear about it from Cisco and other partners because it's a sunset learning offering, not a Cisco offering. Okay. Because Sunset is one of the few platinum learning partners that are out there, we're allowed to record the official Cisco training that we provide and post it up to our internal database. So that's what we've done. We've taken the different courses we teach and we record them. So the training of that week, we recorded it, broke it up into different sections. And it's not per day. It's not like, oh, here's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's here's the video on OSPF. Here's the video on posturing. Here's the video on whatever the topic is. So it's topically broken up, and then we throw it into our database. We also, we post up our tech talks in there. So what we're doing today, all the other tech talks we've done, and it's not per topic. So if you get next, it's not, oh, you got only the security options. You get just everything. So if you, for some reason, say, you know what, I really want to start learning about data center technology. Go watch all the content we have in there for data center. Or I really want to start learning about collaboration. Go watch all the collaboration videos. It's in there. You just get everything. The reason I also like this, it puts you in contact with us, the instructors, where Sunset Learning, we do things a little differently. We have a number of full-time instructors here at SLI, where part of what we do is just provide support to anybody with a next membership. It's not full-time support. It's not consulting. I'm not logging into your firewall, right? But if you have questions about course content or questions about a topic and how it works, we're available for questions. And then if someone really needs help, we can actually schedule those pxCloud environments for our next members. It's what it's designed for. It's available on a first come, first served basis. As a Platinum Learning Partner, we are allowed to schedule pxCloud, fully virtualized, pre-built scenario instances and hand those out to you using your Cisco ID. So that way you can get some of that hands-on time that we all love, but we're trying to learn a topic. So for all these reasons, take a look at Next. If you're not looking at it now, if you're like, well, maybe my company can pay for it. I know that we do offer that bundled in with our training. So when you go take a 5-day, 3-day class, they might say, hey, you want to bundle that in, bundle Next in with that. So talk to your sales reps about that. All right. I'm going to open the floor up for any questions. I'll sit down here. I believe I haven't used this Zoom webinar as much, so I believe most of the questions are coming through the chat. So let me sit down and see if there's any questions, and then I'll answer them either in the chat or verbally as I think best, as trying to get answers out to everybody. So let me see if there's any questions here about anything I've said so far. Cool. Well, hey, if there's no questions, we'll wrap it up here. I'll leave the chat open a little longer, see if anybody has any questions that they're typing out as I speak. But again, my name is Andrew Stibberts. Work here for Sunset Learning, full-time instructor. I do all of the primarily security training here at Sunset Learning, but I also do routing and switching, wireless, SD-WAN, pretty much everything except cloud, except I don't get into that collaboration, like the phone stuff. It's a totally different ballgame, so I don't really get into that. But yeah, look forward. If you guys have any questions or if you attend any of our training, we're more than happy. We give out our email addresses for, we get folks asking questions months after the class. All the training doesn't happen in just 5 days. All right, so we really look forward to having you guys come to class so we can get you through the content, but also assist you as you're trying to just ingest all that info in the future. All right, if there's no questions, you all are free to go. Thank you for attending, and we'll hopefully see you around.